And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 10 of the Sling'N podcast. I'm TJ.
And I'm Kent.
And joining us tonight is Erik Tweedt of Archetype of the Gun. Erik, welcome to the show.
How's it going, guys?
It's going well, man. It's going well. So, Erik, we kind of have a little impromptu tradition that we've started. I know we're 10 episodes in, but we've already got traditions. We've got this little tradition that we've started where we like to ask our guests, who the hell are you? So by that, feel free to introduce yourself, tell people about Archetype of the Gun. But by all means, tell us, who the hell is Erik Tweedt? What makes you you when you're not behind the gun doing your thing, going pew-pew all day? What makes you you, man?
All right. Well, I'm Erik Tweedt. I own and operate Archetype of the Gun. And that is my side gig, right? I am a husband and a father first. The company stuff is nice, but without my family upstairs, this stuff is meaningless. They're why I do what I do, why I train myself to such a high standard, and why I continue to evolve, and why I educate others to do what they can do for themselves and their own. I'm an outdoorsman. Anything outdoors, I am happy doing. Former musician, played every brass instrument except for the trombone. A couple string instruments and a couple of woodwinds, piano, all that fun stuff. Don't get to do that much anymore. Martial artist, don't get to do that much anymore due to my injuries from the fire department. Don't want to risk my pension for it, so I don't get to roll jiu-jitsu like I used to, or do any of the boxing or Muay Thai. But man, there's a whole lot of stuff about me, but keep it pretty simple.
Well, that's fantastic, man. I know I know I'm speaking for Ken on this one, but we are happy to have you on the show. You are based out of the Chicago area, right?
Correct. I'm in Chicago. My classroom and my range are literally across the street from Chicago. So we are technically the closest gun store to Chicago and closest range.
Wow. So I'm curious, being a firearms instructor and being in, I think, what we could all consider falling under the category of behind enemy lines with regards to the politics of the whole situation. Do you find, obviously I'm going to assume that you've had training elsewhere. You've gotten to go outside of Chicago and kind of see,
Right.
The freer parts of the country. But what are some of the dynamics in getting clientele as a firearms instructor in an area like the Chicago area?
So in all honesty, we got a couple different groups of people who seek out training in the Chicagoland area. We have a diehard group of regular trainers that show up to multiple people's classes. It doesn't matter who's hosting the course or what local instructor is teaching the course. They're not really groupies. They just like to do as much training as they can close to home, and they're going to be the ones that always show up and make up all of our initial ticket sales for any class. Then we have the conservatives, who are Second Amendment supporters, and they're the minority up here. But you're going to find a lot of those people on police department, fire department, typical union jobs, laborers, people who like that free stuff, that freedom. But we do actually have a third group of clients up here and students up here, and that would be the reluctant liberal, and generally they will come in after something has happened to them. They're the ones who never even thought of owning a gun, but something scared them, or they were attacked, and Now they're like, you know what? Maybe that's not such a bad idea. You know, and when one of my retirement gigs, I was a gun bunny at Cabela's, so I got paid in guns. It was kind of nice, and a couple times a month we'd have the couple come in, husband, wife, and the husband is buying a gun and his wife's there trying to talk him out of it the entire time. And, she's calling you a merchant of death and talking about how, I kill babies and all this other stuff. And while her husband's like, I'm buying a gun. Somebody tried to break into our house last night. I'm buying a gun.
Right.
Politics be damned. It's all of a sudden their right to own a firearm is pretty important to them.
That not to begrudge your time and tenure as a first responder, being fire department, but the old adage holds true. When you need help right now, it's minutes away.
Yep.
So yeah, good on you for that, man, and good on you for being able to put up with that. I'll be honest, and I think that's what a lot of guys, at least in my position, down here in Tennessee, we don't really have that big mix of very political views, right? You either are or you aren't. Pro gun or not. The people that fall under that second category are typically the minority, right? Mm-hmm. They're in your bigger inner cities, metropolitan areas. Memphis, downtown Nashville has a couple small pockets like that. But I think that kind of, I don't want to say makes us complacent, but as being the ambassadors of the Second Amendment community that we are, it does make us complacent to a degree where we don't get to actually have those conversations with people across the aisle. And I mean, hey, I'm pretty sure that if you were able to spend a little bit more time, one-on-one with that wife, or the woman that was just completely against her husband buying a new gun. Side note, ladies, whenever you tell us stuff like that, it just makes us want to buy a gun that much more. So keep that up. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that somebody like you in the experiences that you've had would have put you in a much better position to probably even win her over, or at least to not necessarily be such a negative person towards it. Maybe she won't go out and buy a gun, but maybe she'll at least understand and just let her husband be in peace and shop to his heart's content. Do you find that to be true? Do you think that?
By the end of the transaction, and I could have. There's a couple ways I could have treated her right, and treat those situations when they try to drag them to class against their will. But you involve them in the process, you educate them, and you be that ambassador. And generally, by the end of it, they may not like it, but they're kind of okay with it. Occasionally, you do have that person who is staunchly anti-gun, no matter what. They'd rather die than defend themselves. I did leave off one small group of clientele or people who like to train up here in the Chicagoland area, and that is the gun-loving liberal. we do have some of them up here. I have quite a few friends who are liberal-leaning on their politics, who train just as much as I do and have huge firearm collections.
The closeted gun owners,
right? They don't talk about it with their friends. In normal society, they have, and some of them have, quite a few of them have two groups of friends. They have their social friends and they have their gun friends. But it's funny. A lot of us up here, I don't know if you guys saw you guys know who JP Sears is?
No.
He's a internet comedian. He's the pasty white, redhead, long hair, red beard, six-pack abs, who's always making fun of stuff. he just did a short video about 2 types of mindsets, and that's the agreement mindset and the acceptance mindset. And man, it was very, very true. There's 2 types of mindsets. You either agree with me and we're friends, and the second we don't agree, you're no longer my friend and we can't talk to each other anymore, and you're evil, which we all recognize as a certain political group sometimes, on both sides of the fence. And then you have the acceptance mindset. Yep, those are your views, and I don't have to agree with you to still be your friend and still have a dialogue with you. I accept you for who you are, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we could get back to that, but I've been rambling on enough. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, Kent was not with us last week. We are happy to welcome Papa Kent back on to the show. Kent, congratulations, brother.
Congratulations, sir.
Damn
Thank
it,
you, guys.
we couldn't be happier for you. But how is Mama and Baby doing? Give the folks an update, man.
So thank God he looks like his mother. There's that. Either that or the milkman's way better looking. My kid is cute. That's all I gotta say. I might be a touch biased, but my kid's the cutest baby in this house. Dude, we're doing great, right? Like, quite the experience. As I've known through other life experiences, my wife is a trooper, and I'm really blessed to have her. She works hard for us and for our family, and she's done amazing things already. And this is just another amazing gift she's given me. So really blessed, really happy. And I'm screwing all kinds of parenting things up in my first week. So it's awesome. So again, I put him in a onesie upside down. I swaddled him backwards. I swaddled the dog for some reason. Sweetie was all pissed off. She was laying in the crib swaddled, and the baby was in the freaking kennel. It is what it is, man. But we'll figure it out.
Those first kid, second kid commercials are 100% true. I'm just letting you know that now.
Yeah. But man, you want to talk about a reason why we do all this crap, right? Like why I'm on my bike trying to lose weight all the time, and why I'm freaking wrapping an ankle med kit around me, and why I'm carrying a fucking gun down my pants. Holy crap. You see that, and all your worldly decisions are looking you right in the face, and you start to either reaffirm some stuff you've been doing or maybe start thinking about changing. And I'm happy to say that I'm pretty happy with the way we're going and the direction we've taken. So life's good on this end of the camera, man. That said, Erik, since I just brought up the medical and all this stuff that we're doing, let's delve outside of the clientele and let's talk about the specifics of your curriculum, because what I'm always interested in is, we talk to, I myself teach, and so many of these other guys who teach handgun or teach medical or teach whatever classes. And every time I ask questions and every time I take a class, I'm always amazed that somebody else found just a slightly different niche or a slightly different approach to the same thing. So what is it about Archetype of the Gun that makes you and your curriculum special? What are you doing different?
So let's start with the to use a marketing adage, the top of the funnel, right? All of my intro classes, be it a basic NRA pistol course, a CCW course, all of those first-time students, included in every single one of those courses, is a Stop the Bleed course. Now, my Stop the Bleed course is, it covers all of the Stop the Bleed curriculum, but being that I've been, in 911 and critical care for, just shy of 20 years now here, my Stop the Bleed course is a little bit more in depth than your average Stop the Bleed course. So I start to tie medical in from the very first class that you ever take. I do I have a whole list of medical classes that I can teach. American Heart Association, recognized educational partner with TECC, PHTLS through National Association of EMTs, all sorts of stuff I can teach. I'm a lead instructor, so I can pretty much make my own classes and submit it to IDPH and get approval for it. So I can teach pretty much whatever medical I want. But
for those of us who, I'm sorry to stop you, you just rolled like 9 acronyms out there, and I'm unfamiliar with all but TCCC or TECC. So help me.
Okay, so AHA is the American Heart Association. Those are going to be your biggest quality CPR courses, and ACLS, Advanced Cardiac Life Support, PALS, Pediatric Advanced Life Support, all those medical courses. Those are things that I offer to medical providers. That it's well above and beyond the layperson. We get into advanced airways and drug calculations, stuff like that. So for the layperson, CPR is pretty much where that stops with the AHA stuff. TECC, since I am not a military member, I cannot teach TCCC. So TCCC is Tactical Combat Casualty Care, and TECC is Tactical Emergency Casualty Care. It's just the civilian version of TCCC. So there's some subtle differences in it, and but primarily it's a civilian focus instead of a military focus. I personally have never been through TCCC, but from what I've talked to, many of the people that I've talked to or taught next to, in the civilian side, there really isn't suppressing fire, things like that. National Association of EMTs and PHTLS is pre-hospital trauma life support. They also do a whole other myriad of continuing education programs for medical professionals. So I think that's all the acronyms that I rambled off there.
Sorry, I didn't mean to bog you down in the weeds, but I was like,
right.
whoa, too many. So you've got certs at the instructor level to teach under all those different medical umbrellas. And for those that don't know, Erik, Chicagoland fire guy, and then civilian EMS, EMT. And excuse me if EMS is one thing and EMT is another thing, and I just shat down the grape shoot or something. I didn't mean to. It's just they're the same thing in my mind. I'm sure they are not. So
they're the same thing in most people's minds.
Right, fair. So don't hate on the lack of education on this end. So you're incorporating medical into your gun school. When did gun school become a thing for you? The medical makes sense based on your long-term career track. Where did gun school turn up for you?
So I did not grow up in the Chicagoland area. I am a transplant. I just kind of wound up here, and I kind of wound up on the fire department. It was never really a goal of mine. I just ended up there. I grew up down south, so I grew up shooting. So I was always around guns, but my significant level of training started around 2005-ish, is when I started getting into taking my personal training seriously. After that, you start shooting with a group of people, and it's like, oh, hey, you've made some improvements. You're doing some things differently that I like. Can you show me how to do that? So that's kind of how the teaching started. And I've always been a teacher from high school on. I taught music lessons. I taught in scouts, and I did all sorts of teaching all throughout college and tutoring. So teaching was always something that I did. So teaching people to shoot guns that didn't have the same skill set as me was natural. I've always been a preceptor or educator in the EMS world, so guns was just a natural transition. But 2005 was about when I started taking my personal training real seriously, traveling to take training, getting into as much didactic or book knowledge as I could from any reputable source. I spent a lot of time just absorbing information from all the military members, law enforcement members that I hung out with and spent my time with. And finally, when people started asking me to not just teach them, but teach their family members and teach their friends and strangers, and all of a sudden there's income coming in that can be documented. You know, I have to start paying taxes. All of a sudden I've got a company of my own. But before I started my company, you know, I actually did a couple-year internship, is what I call it, teaching for a couple other people.
Oh, cool. So you did some AI work around the circuit kind of thing, and
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, in the Chicagoland area. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
You know, after I was done AIing and doing that stuff and decided to start my own company, that's when, you know, I got the NRA certs, got the Range Master certs, just recently got the handgun combatives instructor certification from Dave Spalding.
On the docket to ask you about for sure. I was remiss in not sending in my thing to go to that, but you know, new baby in October, and I was like, but
Yep.
Dave's been one of my top 10 all time classes personally. He was something else, and would have loved to have been among that group. But you guys obviously had a good group of cats on the range out there, and you know, it's nice to be able to teach under his banner and you know, continue that legacy. That means a lot for those who don't. I'll speak carefully here, but not really. I mean, an NRA cert is like in the bottom of a Wheaties box, right? Anybody can get one if they're willing to like shovel enough spoon, right? We're talking about a guy who literally has what now 20 human beings under his banner. Is it 20? Is it 19? Whatever it might be.
So there are 20 total.
Right.
There were 19 students. Number 20 or number 1.
Bucky,
You know,
right?
Bucky.
Right,
yeah.
right. So,
Yeah.
So my point being is there will never be number 21. Like according to Dave, he's not doing this again. That's it. It's over. And you and those who are on that range with you are fucking one of 20 who can make that claim and teach those courses, which is quite special. And also,
I'm quite proud of it.
Yeah, I can imagine so. And also, by the way, Range Master is nothing to snuff at either. Tom runs
it's not.
Tom runs a hell of an operation up there and has done amazing things in his tactical conferences and all the things that go on with that organization. So when you vet your instructors and you see these various, you know, there's a lot of certifications out there. Some of them are weighted heavier than others for sure. But you, at some point, you figured out like, hey, I've got a skill level here that I'd like to be able to impart onto some others. And teaching is the difficult part of being a gun instructor. For those that don't know, is the teaching part, right? Like putting holes in B8s is putting holes in B8s. It's a whole other thing to convey what's in your head and put it in somebody else's. So as far as the gun school knowledge, what kinds of things are you doing? And again, I'm harping on this difference because we all know. I mean, I could ask you about your 10 favorite drills, and I'm sure we would share 7 of them. And I could ask you, a bunch of different things. But what are some things you're doing differently in your gun school operation where you're, hey, I feel like, and I'm not asking you for the secret sauce to the cookie batter either, but what stuff are you doing a little different that you think folks benefit from?
So besides including medical into all of my entry level or top of the funnel courses. I can teach CCW for the state of Illinois, but I don't teach CCW in the traditional sense. Traditionally, you go anywhere in the country that requires you to take a class to receive a permit to carry a firearm. You're receiving a some sort of preset doctrine and legal course. This is what you need to do to carry legally, and then maybe you shoot a qualification, maybe you don't. Right? It's there's nothing special about any of them. I decided when I started assisting with some of those classes that I could see people in class, and I knew that these people were never going to take another gun class in their lives. And we were doing a huge disservice to the community and to those individuals and to the general public around those individuals when they decide to carry a gun, if we're not actually teaching them how to use their firearm defensively. So I have the list of things that I am required to cover from the state of Illinois, and I cover them, but the rest of the 16 hours isn't just filled with fluff. It's filled with how to fight with your handgun. There are 3 or 4 other CCW instructors in the Chicagoland area that I would recommend. And there's a ton of CCW instructors up here, but everything we do is from the holster. That's not required. We shoot about 400 rounds of ammunition in the Handgun Essentials 1 or my CCW course. The state only requires you to shoot 30 rounds, so that's where we start with trying to be above and beyond and getting people as much education as they can, trying to open their eyes that there's more to it than just taking a permitting class, right? I offer the same stuff that a lot of other people offer. I offer 2-day courses, 1-day courses, stuff like that, and private lessons. But something that I've been doing for the past couple of years that I'm really enjoying is doing shooting clinics. I hold a couple clinics per month on just various topics that anyone with any sort of training can attend. Some of the courses or some of the clinics are, you have to have a certain level of training to get into this, because I'm not teaching you the fundamentals of a draw stroke if we're talking about a movement course. If I'm going to spend 3 to 4 hours in a shooting clinic talking about movement, I can't spend 45 minutes to an hour getting you to draw from your holster safely. So
Right.
So I've been doing a lot of those. Last night I had my micro pistol clinic, which solely revolved around shooting micro pistols and shooting them well, and the little idiosyncrasies that go into running those firearms well, and addressing some of the things that don't translate directly over from your larger firearms, depending on how you've been taught. This Friday, I've got part 1 of Beyond Concealed Carry, which Beyond Concealed Carry is designed to get those people who took the permitting class and realizing that they really didn't get much in the way of firearms education, and get them into, okay, you've got the permit. Well, how do I use this holster? How do I present the gun? How do I, we get into an introduction into cover and concealment and actually using it, right? Instead of just pencil whipping it, which, not every permit class even pencil whips it.
Yeah.
How to do reloads, clear malfunctions, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I'm going to jump in here real quick, just for the typical public service announcement, because it's been a few episodes since we've said it. State mandated concealed carry classes suck. If you take a class, if you are new to the gun industry, new to carrying a gun, new to being a responsible defender of yourself and your loved ones, and you think that you will learn everything that you need to know from a CCW class, you are mistaken. No one is expecting you to be John Wick, but do yourself the favor, seek out credible instruction from a credible and respectably accredited instructor like Kent and Erik here, and get yourself some training above and beyond that mandated class.
It always bothers me when people strive for the minimum in anything. Like, and I mean, we're talking gun school, but you could just easily be talking driving school or anything else. Like, if your kid learned to drive at driver's ed, and that's all, like, you never took your son or daughter out onto a snowy road and show them what happened when shit went sideways, you're doing yourself a disservice there too. It bothers me a lot, and it bothers me that people are looking at this more from a check the box perspective than from a gaining and acquiring serious knowledge perspective. So the crux of the coursework involving medical from start to finish strikes me, and it just kind of occurred to me that, you know, here we are talking about, like, Jesus Christ, we're gonna actually have a guy reload his gun in a CCW class, like, and that being groundbreaking or at least different. And you're pulling out the idea that, like, this is a two-way range and you may in fact find yourself perforated. I'm sure that's quite the holy fuck eye-opener for your average top of the funnel. By the way, I'm stealing your marketing phrase, top of the funnel. I like that a lot.
Yeah. I stole it from someone else.
Right. But, you know, damn it, I can only imagine Mr. Check the Box, and I'm sure Mr. Check the Box walks into your range as well as he does everybody else's, and he's got it all figured out, and he's only there to get you to sign his permission slip. And you throw him a freaking Gen 7 cat, and he looks at it like it's a fucking spaceship. I'm sure that's quite the gut check moment, and I can only imagine the reception you get from people in that. Are folks expecting that when they come in, or is that something you're sliding in on the side?
I let people know in advance that we're doing it.
Okay.
And I don't force people to take part in it if they don't want to take part in it.
Okay.
It's free. It's always going to be free. But I do encourage them to stay for it. And we do that at the end of day one, prior to our range trip.
Okay.
I've got 8 hours to make my case. You might want to stay for this extra 2 hours. You're not paying for it.
got you.
You know, so, you know, I've got 8 hours to make my case. I mean, if they're like, nope, I don't care, I'm out. All right. I also don't have to give that person a permit.
There you go. I like that.
I don't have to pass anybody who fails to meet basic safety requirements. Now, I'm not going to be a dick about it, but, you know, I do generally get. I've had and I've only been doing this for the past couple months, where it's offered every single course, not just as a, hey, if you guys want to stay, you can. But I've been getting a pretty good response from it, you know. So yeah.
I like that. I like now I get your format. That makes a lot more sense. That you're adding it at the end, and of course, it's nice of you to do it for free. You clearly would not have to do that, but, you know, a little added value.
Stop the Bleed classes nationwide are free.
Yeah.
You know, nobody should be charging for a Stop the Bleed class.
Right, but I mean, you could work it into the cost of your.
Oh yeah, I could.
You know, and the fact that you're not is pretty neat. So, who do you find, as far as your client base currently, who do you find is the easiest to make headway with?
Well, there are. Generally, it's women. Because
Yep.
They are there listening to instruction, and they don't generally have an ego invested in it. And then you have the men who are actually there wanting to improve on their skills. And those two people are the ones that are the easiest to make changes in, or not changes, but get them to improve in their abilities. A lot of your, and you have them in every class. You got your stereotypical, I was born with a set of testicles, so I know how to shoot a gun. I'm just here because the state says I have to be. And then you have the, I've been a cop for 25 years. What are you going to teach me? All right. Or sniper.
How to shoot to start with. I've noticed a lot of cops don't know how to shoot for shit. I'm going to go ahead and say it.
The training standards for law enforcement in the United States could be improved. We'll put it that way. Then you get the, my dad was in the military, or or my I've been shooting my whole life. There's nothing new I haven't tried. You get those people. It's like, all right, we're gonna, these people are going to be easy to make improvements over here, but these people over here who are those reluctant learners, going to challenge them, right? And show them that maybe what they're doing isn't the optimal way to do it. With the least amount of energy and time expended to get the skills done. We want to be as efficient as possible when we're doing this stuff. There's not time to fiddle fart around in what you think your gunfight's going to be. Somebody else has a say in it. So,
yeah. I always find it interesting when people have it all planned out. That's I think the funniest. I would just do. I'm like, oh God, you have no idea what's coming. There's just no possible way.
Everybody has a plan until they get hit.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. So the student base being what it is nationally, and it was interesting you were mentioning Chicagoland and the diehards. It seems like we have these groups of guys and gals, who are diehards in any region. You got the Alliance people in Ohio. You got you guys in Chicagoland. You got some of us in the Northeast. Everywhere around the country, there's these like pockets of people who, if you go to enough of classes, you start to be like, oh, hey, right?
Hey, what's up, John?
Yeah, you start seeing the same faces over and over and over again. And I've been focusing some mental energy currently on how do we hook them, right? Like, how do we turn the again, I'm going to steal your thing, top of the funnel into a, holy shit, I've seen this dude at 2 of Erik's classes, 1 of Trek's classes, 3 of Steve's classes, and holy my God, he even paid me to come to something. Look at that. Like, how do we hook that guy? And I say we because it's going to take us all, right? We all have to push that at the same time.
There's going to be, I forget where I heard the number, but I think that another one of the trainers started noticing that same phenomenon. I think there's 5,000 people nationwide that train on the entire circuit.
Yep.
And those are those people that we see and we recognize. All of those people work as our ambassadors and they try to bring their friends in. But in order to hook them, we got to get them to have that aha moment. Yep. They have to see something in your presentation that makes things worthwhile to them, that makes them say, you know what, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was. Right. And for me, that aha moment that I try to get into those entry-level students is, listen, if you're planning on sending lead out, there's a high likelihood that lead's coming in. And you need to know how to do something about it. And I have one way, this person has another way, this person has another way. So if what works from you learn from me doesn't work for you, here are 2 or 3 other people that you can try their method. But we want them to have fun, and people who have fun are going to come back and take more classes. But just to steal Steve Fisher's line, I'm not looking for those people going to tactical band camp, right? I want people that are here not to show off, but to actually learn and to improve their skills. Funny thing, last night, my clinics, I keep them really, really small. Max of 8 people, preferably. I only have 4 people per clinic. Last night's clinic was full, if you ask me, at 4 people. I had 3 firearms instructors and 1 of their wives. And when you have a clientele like that and you can get them to have an aha moment, it makes things worthwhile, because they're going to take that, hey, listen, check out this person. Check out this person. Now, granted, all those people already promote taking classes from other people, so they always come in with an open mind. So it was a pretty easy class for me, actually, because I knew people knew what they were doing. At the same time, you have to get that person. So there was one person in that class that was not a firearms instructor. She's probably had 3 classes her entire life, spread out over 10, 12 years. At the end of it, I said, listen, you shoot with her on a regular basis. Here is what I want you to work on to get her more comfortable and more competent with her firearm. And I gave him 2 things. Start by doing this, move on to doing this. Once you can do those things on demand, we'll talk about some other stuff.
Yep.
And she did fantastic, from the, start of the course where we did our confirmation of skills, and towards the end of class, she had a drastic improvement in her abilities. Now, I can't take credit for a lot of that, because there's been other people that were influential. Hell, maybe I just knocked the rust off, but I gave her homework to do.
Yeah. So, key takeaways from what he just said for the folks playing the home game. If you're with an instructor who's not encouraging you to go be with other instructors, that should be a big flashing red flag warning sign. If you're with an instructor who you've never seen at another instructor's training, like that guy never goes anywhere else, that should also be a big red flag warning sign. Those of us who take this seriously are adult enough to swallow our pride and our egos and go learn from others. I would happily take a class off of you or any dozens of other people that I've yet to have the opportunity to. And I'm thrilled to have had the opportunities I've had. And it always amazes me when somebody gets that I word in front of or behind their name. And that box is forever checked. And that really scares me, because I can't imagine. I don't think anybody's got it all figured out. I can't imagine that I would be the guy that did. Like, that's frightening.
And if you look at that, the instructors out there who never go beyond that initial certification, and they drink too much of their own Kool-Aid, or they've had that institutional inbreeding, this is the way we've always done it, so this is the way I'm going to do it. Those are the instructors who don't make a difference, and who don't last in the long term. Those instructors that do seek to not necessarily evolve, but continue to learn, and to by continuing to learn, continue to validate what they are or they aren't teaching. Those are the ones who are in it for the long haul. Those are the ones who you see doing this for decades, right?
Yeah. It's the institutional inbreeding thing. You see that in the military, you see that in the bigger schools. You see that in law enforcement and stuff like that. But even those guys, you go to the right place and you see those guys who have the manual and kind of glance at it every once in a while. But, the class should not be a cookie cutter, same drill, same demo, same in 16, and it was the exact same content. That's frightening to me because there's a problem there. So somebody's not learning and evolving, and clearly there's no focus on the individual student in that environment. It's conforming the student to your cookie cutter rather than addressing individual student needs, and that's always something that stands out to me. So just in talking to you earlier, you mentioned that you've changed the way you integrated medical here recently, even in the last several months. Oh, I'm doing this differently now. That tells me right away that you're readdressing your POI or your curriculum or whatever you want to call it and making it work.
Now, there's something to be said, and we can't discount those instructors that do have that higher command of the knowledge of what they're trying to put out, and they know it like the back of their hand, and they can ad lib and roll off the fly to make the course work. Those are not the instructors we're talking about. By 10 a.m. every day, we have shot 63 rounds, and
Right.
we are at this point on the syllabus, and it's been like that for those guys are the problems. The people that have that higher command are the one who can still present the core premise or their POI, but you go to it year after year because, hey, listen, I've tweaked this a little bit. I've tweaked this a little bit, and now it's better, and now it's better. Or it may be the same, but now I have an option for somebody that maybe my methods didn't work for last time. Why do I take entry-level courses? Because I'm out there shopping, right?
Yeah.
As long as you give attribution, you're not stealing. If this instructor explains a skill differently than I do, we still do the same thing, but I now have his method of explaining it to a student who can't grasp my method of explaining it. And as an instructor, having 3, 4, 5 ways to explain something so that everybody can, learn that skill and in the end, go home, practice, and anchor that. That's what we're here for. If I, as a teacher, can only spout my way, I'm not really a teacher. I'm just an instructor.
Yeah.
And there's a difference, if you ask me.
No, there is for sure. So quick shout out in the chat. We've got a gentleman by the name of Don Palmer who's making all kinds of valuable notations here. But the one that seems to me
I should
to be
probably pay attention to the chat.
Well, I'm gonna sideline you here on one. So Don's literally he's put out 5 or 6 really awesome things. But the most important thing that Don has brought up so far is something about your old lady stockings. And I mean, I don't know what that is, but it seems to me of all the insight that he's given us in chat, that must be the most important thing. So do you care to elaborate?
So Don is another graduate of Dave Spalding's instructor cert. And I came up with a new drill for my So You've Been Shot class, and I sent it to the instructor group. Well, I was teaching on black asphalt in August in Chicagoland area, so it was quite nasty out. So I was running in just a pair of shorts and Under Armour, and I had a pair of knee-high compression socks on that looked like something you would see from
Mrs.
from
Doubtfire,
Mrs. Doubtfire, or the Wizard of Oz. The Wicked Witch would wear red and blue vertical horizontal stripes all the way up to my knees, and that's the only thing that people took away from the drill was my socks.
So there's a super valuable drill somewhere out there in cyberspace, and the only thing anybody noticed was your socks. Fucking typical.
No, they're just busting my balls, but it was a good drill and I was happy with it. But man, if you just look on the clip on YouTube, The socks will just draw your focus in from the initial get-go, and you just kind of follow them around the screen.
Nice.
I'm hearing gunshots, but I can't look away from the stockings.
100%.
So let's talk for just a little bit, and I mean a very little bit, because I hate talking about gear until it's a problem. So let's talk about sourcing quality gear from a student perspective, and the horror shows of things that we see show up to the range that are supposedly holsters or belts or whatever, right? Like how much fuckery and nonsense are you seeing? This is just like two dudes shooting the shop shit, because I have seen some scary stuff lately.
Let's just say this. There's a reason why I bring spare guns,
Yeah.
spare holsters, and
Yeah.
spare all sorts of stuff. I even bring spare belts for my students. Man, I've seen belts snap. Funny story. Last night in the micro pistol class, this guy has instructor certs out the wazoo, right? Good friend of mine. I've known him for quite a few years, and he was in my micro pistol last night. At least 4 or 5 times his holster came out of his pants with the gun. And it's a simple thing. He was wearing a 1.5-inch belt, and he had a 1.75 clip on it going over, which isn't the end of the world for most people, but he's a good dude. But his tactical tank was pushing a little bit on the gun too much, and it would cause the gun to shift down past his belt, which would allow it to unclip and come out. So there's obviously the simple solution. Fix your clip, right? Get a better clip, or maybe get a wedge on it that anchors the gun more, pushing it out, so that your tactical tumor isn't, your Budweiser tumor isn't pushing it down and out away from your belt, causing it to unhitch. We isolate it, we fix it, and we move on. But people showing up with sticky holsters for inside the waistband use, oh my God, drives me nuts. I'd rather have a hybrid holster in class, right? At least they work some of the times.
Yeah.
But when it comes to sourcing good information, there's so much bad information out there on the internet. It's kind of hard to know what's good information. And there are instructors out there who will give you poor information. If the company that you're looking at purchasing gear from is not made up of shooters, you probably shouldn't be buying shooting gear from them.
Yeah.
Just saying. If they're not shooting their gear on a regular basis, how the hell do they know what they're doing? So that's a big one for me. I look for companies that are made up of shooters. Filster, Dark Star, Raven, right? And if they aren't a company of shooters, right? If they're a large company, do they bring in industry experts to help them develop these products? Everyone's going to have trial and error. What works for me doesn't always work for someone else. We've all got that box of holsters, but at the same time, even if there's always going to be that, those 1 or 2 people, that's garbage, I don't like it, I don't carry appendix, you'll shoot your dick off, blah, 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 right? Pay attention to the naysayers, read the negative reviews. And if there is a legitimate beef or complaint with what's going on, maybe some of those people who are saying this is the best thing ever don't have the breadth of knowledge or the knowledge depth to be like, okay, yeah, this is good. If that's the only thing they've ever tried, it's the best holster in the world.
Right.
But if someone says, I like this holster better for this reason, I like this holster better for this reason, and they can articulate, right, I'm a big fan of CYA, and it's not cover your ass. It's can you articulate, and that's not just for in defensive shootings. That for is in life, man. If I'm asking you a question, better be able to articulate why you want me to see your point of view, or why you're throwing your support behind this company or whatever.
Yeah. And because they gave us a promo code and a kickback is
Right.
not the correct. Yeah.
So I have promo codes that
Sure.
I ask for from vendors that I support their products. I get zero kickback from that. Zero.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, there's a right way and a wrong way to do that. So let's talk about your training path a little bit. What was the best so far, the absolute best class you've been in as a student?
Boy, if I don't say Dave Spaulding's Handgun Combatives Instructor course, I'm not going to be allowed in the instructor update next year.
Right.
No, Dave's was a fantastic course, and I've been in a couple of his other courses. Being able to spend a week with Dave and not just get his instruction, but get to go behind the curtain, right, and see the Wizard of Oz, right? No.
It's just a littler, angrier man with Crown Royal, isn't it?
Right.
Okay, is that all it is? Okay.
He's expanded his palette, no. I've always been happy with what Dave's put out, and I've been happy with what other instructors puts out. And there's the reason why I picked Tom Gibbons and Dave Spaulding as people to get their instructorships from. So I'm going to sideline what was my favorite for the time being. Obviously, the Handgun Combatives Instructor course was the most rewarding, but I'm going to switch it up to what should the next class be? What is one of the most beneficial classes for someone without a lot of experience to take?
Okay.
Man, Mag 40, Asad Ayyub,
Okay.
his 40-hour use of force and shooting course. You get to shoot, you get to learn some of his methods. Maybe those methods work for you, maybe they don't. But the use of force stuff and the amount of knowledge it receive is absolutely amazing. One of the most eye-opening courses that I took as a civilian shooter, to really solidify what can I do and how do I do this. Not in the aspect of shooting, but in the aspect of legally defending myself and how I can articulate that, and what case law I can to back me up. How do I choose attorneys? How do I choose all sorts of stuff. I mean, Mag 40 was a fantastic course.
Awesome.
There's a million different. I mean, there's a handful of different ways to shoot a gun, and a million people teaching them, right? But the course that focuses on the actual use of force, and man, not everybody's a fan of Asad Ayyub, but there's a lot of stuff that hit home. I think I took like 40 pages of notes in that course, and that's all handwritten notes, front and back. That's a lot of notes.
That is.
It was incredibly eye-opening, and I still find myself going back and referencing those notes from that course.
That's awesome.
It's not primarily a gun course.
It's interesting. You just said something that I want to get you to expand on. You said not everybody's a fan of. There's a lot of this cult of personality in the gun training world, right? Where everybody has their hero. And then the antithesis of that is if I'm anti this guy or that guy for whatever reason, I'm not a fan of XYZ. And unfortunately on the interwebs, it's mostly because somebody else told me not to be. Because God forbid we ever have firsthand experience. And I just kind of want to
and make our own educated, informed decision.
Right. I just want to point out that you can learn an awful lot from somebody who may not be somebody who you want to go hang out and have beers with afterwards, or may not be somebody who you don't have to have a love affair with the person to gain something from a class with them. And I'm not saying, like, sure, if I have the choice between instructor A and instructor B who are teaching the same level of curriculum that I need to get, and I want to support one dude over the other because I know him personally and I think he's a good guy or whatever, fine, I get that. But if the whole reason you haven't trained with somebody is because Big Shooter Papa 2000 on fucking the high road told you not to, or whatever forum, insert dumbass forum here. No offense, forum guys. I love the forums and I get a lot of information there sometimes and I try to help. But if you're
are the wave of the future, Facebook's going downhill.
Right. But if your whole frame of reference is third or fourth hand knowledge, don't toss that out. Train where you get the opportunity to train. Other than the obvious, we know it's unsafe based on serious AAR over and over and over again. You know, if every AAR says you're going to get your dick shot off, it might very well get your dick shot off, right? Like, let's be honest. But I just wanted to point out that, like, you don't have to marry the person to go train with them.
Nope. And here's the way I explain it to people. Listen, I have certain instructors that I will recommend wholeheartedly, and then when people ask me about other instructors that I don't necessarily support, I will respond with, I won't put other instructors down.
Yeah.
I won't throw my support behind them, and you can take from that what you will. When they ask me about instructor A and I don't support that instructor, I'll be like, have you thought about this instructor over here?
Yep.
You know, let's look at I'm gonna say some, excuse you.
I'm sorry,
I'm gonna say some nasty words on the internet. All right. Don't worry, your sponsors won't be offended. James Yeager and Sonny Puzakis, whatever his last name is, right?
Right.
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 You've got two camps on those guys. You've got the Camden Mafia, and you've got everybody else.
Yep.
Okay. Yes, Sonny shot one of his AIs. Yes, you know, some of James' instructors have done stupid shit, and they've done downrange videos, right? Even though those guys may not be high on my list of people to train with, it doesn't mean that I won't ever train with them. I hear from these people that those guys are complete jagoffs and shouldn't be around firearms. And I hear from other people that I do respect that, you know what? No, these guys are generally good guys, and they just, you know, it's just internet personalities clashing. You know, that right there will allow me to be like, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to go give that guy some money, and I'm going to figure it out for myself. That way, if I decide not to throw my support behind this person, it's based upon my personal experiences, not third-hand information.
Yep.
If I'm not going to support someone verbally, I'm going to be able to do it by first-hand knowledge.
I will say this. I have a tactical response cert in the desk next to me, next to all the other gun certs that are in my little binder that I, you know, go to sleep with at night and pet so very happily. Good things right off the bat. The mindset lecture was amazing. Right? They did a really good job with the mindset lecture in that class. And I'm stealing this from, who am I stealing this from? I think Scott Chidlinski said this to me, that there are different types of people who he believes are truly 100% behind what they teach, and people who are snake oil salesmen. I absolutely thoroughly believe that the folks at Tac Response believe everything they're saying, and they truly believe it's the best product that they could be putting out.
From what I know of them, I would agree with that.
I do not believe that they're sitting around in the team room or whatever room they're in after going, boy, we got one over on those jackoffs. I really believe that they believe their method is the best. I'm not going to sit here and fucking, well, this drill or that drill or whatever. I didn't love it necessarily. But I got to be honest with you, you know, they got all kind of people out on that range that will probably be their one fighting handgun class, right?
Mm-hmm.
And their reach and their marketing and the work that they did got a lot of people from a lot of different walks of life out on that range.
Tell you what, James Yeager can fill a class.
Absolutely. And you know something? Those people, maybe they were sinking a little bit before swimming. Maybe it was not necessarily the way I'd run a line. Who the fuck am I? I mean, this dude's a multinational freaking, you know, web superstar, right? I'm just a dude in his basement, literally right now. But you know what? Those people all left there with a solid mindset and a better level of gun skill than they had when they showed up generally. So, you know, I'm not going to sit here and throw stones. If that's where they go, that's where they go.
Listen, even if this person is controversial and I may not openly support that person, like I said, I'll still take a class with them so I can have firsthand knowledge of it. But what I go to that class to take away, I may learn that, you know what? Nope, he does good shit. On the other hand, I may learn a whole bunch of ways not to do things.
Sure.
You know, so good or bad experience, I'm going to learn something and I'm going to get my money's worth out of it. Now, there are certain times when I may just walk out of a class because it's just blatantly unsafe.
Yep.
You know, but that also depends on your skill level and the skill level of the people next to you. If I'm doing a certain drill with the people, the 19 people or 20 people that, you know, if I was, all right, 21 people, including Dave Spalding, right, from the handgun combative instructor course. If I'm standing on a line with those people and we're doing a drill that may be questionable, doing that drill with those people that I am confident in their skill abilities is completely different from doing a questionable drill next to an open enrollment class. That
Absolutely
I have
correct.
no idea of somebody's, you know.
Yeah.
You know, so I may be willing to take a little bit more risk with people that I'm 100% confident in their abilities.
Sure. That makes full and total sense. And that, if I think there's a fair criticism of some of these places, and this is not just just to be clear, hard full stop. I'm done talking about just TAC response, and I'm talking about bigger gun schools in general.
Front
when
sight.
you get sure, well, SIG. I mean, there's a lot of these places where you go to these classes and you get a lot of good quality there, but you also have no idea who you're on the line with.
Mm-hmm.
And those first couple hours, that exactly that. You start to hear their sphincters collectively doing that, and you know, maybe 30 people on the line in a bullhorn is not the ideal learning environment. I'm just saying, maybe relay 1, relay 2, and relay 3 are not a bad idea. I don't know. But that's not just germane to TAC response. There's a dozen places I can think of right now, where you will go and you will hear somebody hollering through a bullhorn, and there will be 30 of you stacked, you know, like cattle across the chute, and the level of individual feedback you get will be pretty much zero. You might get a slap on the back and hey, you're milking your grip or something. You know, I don't know. I'm not coming for the celebrity thing either, though. That is long since wore off on me. You know, where it's like, oh, I gotta train with, you know, you have to hit the checklist, right?
So go ahead.
No, please.
So speaking of checklist, right? Who do you train with, right? How do you make those decisions? For me personally, I had a list of people that I wanted to train with. You know, every time I found a new instructor, like, hey, he's doing something that I'm interested in, I'd like to take a class from him. You know, I just had a long list of instructors I wanted to train under. This was years and years ago. if you're making your decisions based solely off of social media presence, that's probably the wrong way to go about it. But one of the big things that was an eye-opener for me and drastically changed my personal training plan was the death of Pat Rogers, right? Pat died in his sleep, right? Everyone, that's common knowledge, right? And my goal was to get into a class with him that next training season. And Christ, this icon in the training industry is gone. Maybe I need to take a look at that and spend some time with the, founding generations of what we know as training today, and spend some time with those guys before they are gone, whether they retire, whether they die, whether they, whatever. So I started going to the old guard primarily for quite a few years before I started incorporating the next generation of trainers. I changed my entire training plan years ago. And I've pretty much knocked everyone off that list, save one. Not just check marking boxes so I can say that I can train with this person, but that's kind of part of it. I want to get that experience from those people who were the young guys teaching under Jeff Cooper, right?
Right.
So I can get the young guys later.
Yeah. It'd be like hitting the opportunity to, I don't know, train to fight under Tyson or train to fight under freaking, I don't know, some new boxer or something. I don't know my boxers. That was a poor analogy. But, what he's saying is like these crusty old dudes might have some knowledge somewhere rattling around.
What's old is new.
Right. Well, there's nothing new under the sun, right? Like you hear that all the time.
There's only so many ways to shoot a gun, and they've all been come up with.
For sure. Well, it's interesting because like some of these guys like Dave, not to be, talking tales out of school or whatever, but he's been talking about slowing it down and retiring.
Oh no, he is. He's
Like,
hardcore on it.
Right. Like since he started his civilian training endeavor, he's been talking about stopping it. Right. Like,
well, that was his retirement gig, right?
Right.
He left all of his, so he retired from the police department, and he retired from his retirement gig, and now he's retiring from his retirement gig, right?
Right. So when these guys come out and they say, look, dude, the 2021 training calendar is out and there might not be a 2022. That's not a furniture store doing their 40th like grand closing sale. Some of these dudes mean it, and you're right. It's a very valuable proposition to go and to get with those guys.
You mean they're not going to retire 7 times like Garth Brooks did in country music?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Or like pull the Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan. Come back as number 45 or whatever. Yeah, no, for sure. As far as the new, you mentioned the new generation. Maybe you and I will get to consider ourselves a part of it someday. I'm a half a decade or more behind you in it, and it's interesting to look at the lineage and see some of these guys like, okay, this dude AI'd with these couple guys, and then these. It's almost like following. If you're into sports at all and you follow football coaches, and you realize that the playbook hasn't changed all that much, no matter what team the guy's on, and he's still a pretty good communicator. Who do you think make the best? We talked about the best students. Who makes the best trainer?
So let's, I guess, let me make sure I understand the question. Who makes the best trainer? So who is developing the future generation of the training industry?
Yeah, essentially, who's putting out the best product in terms of longevity? And I don't mean a specific person. I mean like a personality type or a.
I Now, a lot of people are going to go poo-poo on this, right? I have experience on both sides of the spectrum with law enforcement trainers and civilian trainers. I would say that the civilian trainers are putting out the best students because they've got all the skin in the game. On the civilian side of it, if you aren't relevant, if you aren't putting out a quality product, if if you're not doing something that puts butts in seats, you're not going to be in the game. So the civilian side, that the people that have all the skin in the game are putting out a better product for promoting the future of the training industry. On the law enforcement side, those people that I've taken calls recently, hey man, can you help me find this? I need to get this so I can get my law enforcement certs, blah, blah, blah. And they have no interest in training with anybody outside of law enforcement because that's all they want to do. It's, to better their resume, whatever. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with bettering your resume. But when that is the end goal, not part of the goal of becoming a better instructor, those law enforcement guys are always going to be able to fill classes because there's always going to be academy classes. So they don't have to stay relevant. They don't have to continuously evolve as an instructor and put out a good product. They could put out shit. Pardon my language. Sorry, guys. They could put out a mediocre product, and they're still going to have butts in seats because there's always going to be that next academy class.
Right.
Whereas on the civilian side of things, if you're not putting out good product, if you're not staying relevant, you're out of business. So I think not the NRA. They are the entry level. They are that first stepping stone when it comes to becoming a trainer. And if the only thing on your training resume is NRA, you've been indoctrinated. Sorry. If you've never experienced anything outside of NRA training, you've been indoctrinated.
I can't even imagine how a customer, I'm sorry to cut you off, how as a customer you could show up and talk about deflagration and have that be a serious part of the course curriculum and go, you know what, Johnny, I'm gonna lay down another $150 and come back for another one of these. But there are people who do it, and I sit here and go, holy shit, I don't know how.
Let me scare you a little bit here. A number of years ago in my NRA basic pistol instructor course, my NRA instructor, who I knew was full of it, promoted that the only way to safely clear your firearm is to cover the ejection port and catch the round in your hand.
Oh my God.
Because if you drop the round on the ground, it's going to go off.
Right.
And you're going to get shot with it. And his basis was this, because when he was in Boy Scouts in the 1940s, he dropped some 22 rounds on the ground and the rimfire cartridges went off. Nobody was hurt because when a round goes off outside of a chamber, we all know that the energy goes everywhere and it's not channeled into the projectile, so it can't do any real damage. But he actually promoted capturing that round in your hand, potentially trapping a round that's about to go off in a closed chamber.
So God forbid you have a hang fire in a gunfight and you don't immediately clear that weapon to get it. Like, hold on, stop the gunfight. I've got to wait 30 seconds exactly to make sure that this round goes off in a safe direction.
Yeah.
There's
a significant difference between marksmanship training and self-defense and fighting.
Yeah. It's just, it boggles my mind. And what worries me is that nobody else is picking up that. Like, so they came out, they being the NRA, and they're like, oh, we'll fix it. Carry guard, right? Here's carry guard. And it's like, holy shit, that's a bigger dog pile than the last. Nice. But I'd like to see, other than Givens, really, there's no national level instructor accreditation for the truly civilian shooter that's available in PA the same as it is in Chicagoland, the same as it is in Cali. And it's I wish somebody would fill that void. And I mean, USCCA.
Okay, so we've got USCCA, we've got NRA, we've got Tom Givens. Handgun Combatives is a non-starter because it's a one-off deal. You've got Paul Howe with CSAT, right? Doing his instructor certification. You've now got Spencer Keepers, who's a Tom Givens instructor, doing his AWIB. You've got Scott Jedlinski. You've got Aaron Cowan doing their Red Dot instructor courses. You've got Will Petty doing his vehicle instructor course. Now, granted, whether or not you're law enforcement or not, or how many times you've trained with him will get you in with him. You never know. But there are people out there putting out instructor certifications beyond the basics. But what is more important than the instructor certifications, if you ask me, is that person a perpetual student? Yeah. Are you a teacher all the time and never a student, or are you always a student and sometimes a teacher?
Yep.
Me personally, I strive to take about 200 hours of continuing education and professional development annually. Whether it's medical, legal, firearms, 200 hours is my annual goal. If I'm looking at instructor and all he has is an NRA cert, but he has documented, he's got that basic instructor level course. He's got that BIT course, right? He knows the basics of educating somebody. But he's got thousands of hours of education from industry wide. I'm more willing to give that person a chance than somebody who's constantly filling classes with bargain basement prices of NRA courses. Your $90, your $75 carry permit courses, that's 16 hours. How the hell are you? I mean, you're just a cattle farm at that point. You're a puppy mill. So
yeah.
Delving into the instructor's background will go a long way in helping you figure out who to train with and who not to. Even if they don't have that gold standard of the civilian instructor cert of range master, right?
Yeah. It's just one of those things where there is not, so many other industries have a true industry standard, a true set of credentials. Okay, so we'll dovetail to your medical world.
Mechanics, right?
Yeah, sure.
Oh yeah, EMS.
Yeah. You got your various levels of paramedic or EMS or EMT or OEC certified or whatever. There's a million different med certs out there, but you can go look up any of those acronyms you were hitting us with an hour ago. I could Google foo them sons of bitches up, and I could know exactly what your frame of reference and level of education was if I so chose to do so. Right?
Yep. There's a little bit more conflagration with firearms. Same with martial arts. What is that person's pedigree?
Sure. Yeah, that's interesting.
Cobra Kai.
So real quick, I do want to chime in here. We have a comment, some feedback from one of your students. CFD Shooters in the chat states, attended Erik's micro pistol class last night. As an instructor, I'm always looking for new information and, whether intentional or not, their methods of instruction. Erik did an outstanding job at both. So kudos to you, Erik, for the job you did last night.
Excellent. Yeah.
We could read that another way. A guy you met last night said he had a great time.
right? So CFD Shooters is man, he's the one of the instructors that was there last night. That he's got instructor certs out the wazoo, and he's the one who had the problems with the holster. Man, John is a great guy, and I recommend people train with him for the local. And he does do traveling stuff. He is one of those perpetual students, man. That guy puts me to shame taking classes, right? No, I'm not sure whether it was what the intended or not. I don't know what takeaway he had that wasn't intentional.
No,
but
no,
no,
that's not what he
I always
meant.
have a good time with John.
That's not what he meant. If you read it, what he meant was whether intentional or not, their methods. In other words, he's looking at your methods of instruction and stealing them, whether he means to or not.
No. John's a great human being, and I enjoy every moment that I spend with him. Honestly, he's a genuinely good person and doing good things in the industry.
Awesome. So
yeah, real quick, I'd like to caveat that with Eric, if you would be so inclined after the show, if you have, of course, we've got your links in the description and stuff, but if you have a list more specifically for the other listeners that we might have to this podcast that might not be in the Illinois area or in the Chicagoland area, if you have a list of instructors that you might be willing to recommend, if you send those over to me, I'll be happy to include those as well.
Yeah, we can come up with something.
Sure. Very cool. So we're at that magic mark, unless you guys want to pull a PNS episode and go for like 6 hours and start doing like, speed or something. We're about 5 minutes away.
Well, the wife and the kids are asleep, so.
Ooh. Well,
whatever trouble I was in ain't gonna get any worse. No.
Yeah, that's welcome to married life. So, what do you want to leave us with? If you've, but by this point, hopefully some of our podcast listeners and viewers and stuff that have never heard of you now have. And thank you very much also for bringing some of your fellow trainers and students to our envelope, that hopefully they stay around here. But to the new people who've not heard of you and this is their first exposure to you, what would you like to leave them with? And then, of course, do your plugs and your upcoming dates, and where can we get the T-shirt for the tour and all that stuff?
All right. Well, this is where I always struggle. It's easy for me to hop in front of a line and teach a point of instruction that I wasn't planning on teaching because somebody bailed on the class or whatever. That's easy more, but the self-promotion stuff has always been hard for me. Social media marketing is awful. Takeaways for me, you are more likely to use your medical training than you are your firearms training. I can't count how many students I've had, how many times I personally have had, how many times my friends have had to use their medical skills, and none of them have ever had to use their firearm skills, except for during a training class. So getting a solid, and actually this question just came up in the Sentinel Concepts alumni group. Somebody asked the question, I'm a new dad. What do I do? I've had the, combat casualty care from, or the, no, I forget what the other one is at the moment, for the military Stop the Bleed stuff. What do I do? I mean, how do I apply this to my child? I've only applied it to the adults. But having a good AHA accredited CPR course, and having a quality TECC or Stop the Bleed course covers you on the medical end of it, because you're going to use those medical skills significantly more frequently. If you want to really get into the weeds of it, get your EMT license. and you'll use those skills throughout your lifetime. Those are skills that you can take with you everywhere. Every place that you can't take a firearm, you can take those skills with you. Even if you never get your state license or your national accreditation, that education is still there, and that's something that you can always have with you. Knowledge is that thing that separates us from the animals, right? That ability to critical think, not just opposable thumbs. That ability to problem solve on the fly and make the best of a bad situation, whether it involves a firearm or not. The medical stuff is something that I hold dear. Stuff that I have upcoming. I'm not traveling the rest of the year. Everything, there might be a last minute December class that we're talking about in Georgia. I forget. But all the rest of the stuff I have coming up is going to be local. I got Matt Jaques next weekend doing his Fighting from Concealment course. There's a couple seats left in that course. Next year, I've got people that I'm hosting. I've got Mike Pannone from CTT Solutions. I've got Rob Haught from SimTac doing a shotgun course. We're just finalizing dates. Chuck and Varg have expressed interest in coming back to the Chicagoland area next year. I got Dave Spalding coming back next year. So 2020 is looking pretty good in the Chicagoland area for just the people that I bring in, as well as what some of the other trainers are bringing in. My monthly calendar stuff is up on Facebook, my website, and the Shore Gallery's website. Doing my clinics if you want. And if you don't have time to take a 2-day course or something like that, jump into one of the clinics, jump into one of those 1-day courses, and any amount of training is still training. It doesn't have to be the full ticket to ride, right? So just get out there and improve your skills incrementally. This may take us over our time limit, but today I posted on my Facebook page the story of a wife shooting and killing a home invader who was pistol whipping her husband, and in the process, her husband took 3 of her bullets and she paralyzed him. And there's people talking that's an acceptable outcome. Man, that just shows your level of training. They're like, oh man, she was put in a hard position. She was given a terrible choice, and she had to make a decision to save her children. Yeah, she was put in a terrible position, but she should have had the maturity to seek out training to take on the responsibility of the armed lifestyle, so that when that situation appears, it wouldn't be new to her. Shooting a loved one is never an option. Shooting an innocent bystander is never an option. So get that training, take that responsibility seriously. I'm not going to get into the weeds of the rights, but in this nation, we have the right of the Second Amendment and the right to self-defense, God-given, however you want to say it. But it is up to us to hone those skills and make sure that we aren't doing damage with those skills, right? So seek out that training and better yourself. There is no such thing as an acceptable civilian casualty in the civilian world. Sorry, you're lying to yourself if there is.
But I only line broke the no shoot. I got most of the perf. Yeah,
it's on the perf.
It's on the perf. We're good.
And now your husband is deaf in that ear.
Right.
I mean, I guess it's better than being paralyzed.
Right. Now,
Um,
actually, it's good you brought up the rights, because that was going to be our ending for tonight, and I'm gonna kind of use that awesome segue and give it to TJ to let him fucking ginger angrily at his computer screen as he tells you all how fucked up you are. Not you, but the rest of
no,
you.
I can't wait to get out of this restrictive hellhole. Sorry.
Yeah.
You're fine,
Food's
man.
great.
No, so Eric, real quick, thank you for coming on the show. But one of the things that we certainly wanted to make sure we mentioned during this episode was the Second Amendment rally that's going to occur on November 2nd. That's a Saturday afternoon. There are details all over Facebook and Instagram. Certainly, you can find it. It's published there. If you have any questions about it, feel free to leave comments or send us questions in the comments. But sadly, I am not able to attend this. But Kent, you are going to be going in our stead. You're getting a small group together to go down and join in on this Second Amendment rally. So I'm going to be honest. One of the reasons that I can't go, actually, the primary reason I can't go is because I sat on my thumbs too much. I hemmed and hawed over whether or not I should go because I'm sure many of you often question what good something like a Second Amendment rally does. Many of these politicians, and elected officials don't give a shit about what we say or do or think as long as we are complying. But then it kind of hit me, and that was the Second Amendment rally, or rallies in general, never achieve the goals that many of us hope that they would. In a perfect world, we would all show up in mass on on the west lawn of the Capitol building, and all of these crooked politicians would finally see the light, and they'd repeal the NFA, they would repeal the Gun Control Act, they would realize that every gun law is an infringement, and they would never touch the Constitution in a negative way again. But that's not the case. Whether or not us showing up for things like these rallies, whether or not those actually have a positive impact to any light, is arguable. We could debate that. We could do a whole damn show on that. But the reality of the situation is, folks, I can certainly tell you that while the politicians might not take action on making things better or trying to retract the damage that's already been done by us showing up, what is definitely going to happen is them realizing that none of us actually give a shit and we're complying and complacent and complicit in their actions further against our constitutional rights. So while showing up might only say a sentence or two, not showing up speaks volumes. So just to put things into perspective, if you knew that there was a planned rally on your front doorstep for whatever it is that you might have done in your life, you called somebody by the wrong gender pronoun or whatever have you, and they planned a rally for 2 months on your lawn. Okay, sure. When they show up, you might be like, I'm not changing my mind, whatever have you. But if nobody showed up, you'd be like, wow, nobody gives a shit. I can keep on doing the crappy things that I do all the time. Whatever that case might be. So take that into consideration. Kent and I share the sentiment that we have to be involved in the political game to a degree. Whatever comfortability you might have with that's going to be your own personal preference. But we always encourage you to at least write your senators, call your congressmen, so on and so forth, and get involved and let your voice be heard. So while I cannot go, much to my dismay, Kent is going to go for us. Rest assured, I will be there with him in spirit, but I will be making the next one. You can bet your ass on that. So if you're going to be in the DC area on November 2nd, if you have the means and the capability to go, give up a Saturday afternoon, give up a weekend, go visit our Capitol, and let your voice be heard and stand and be counted. And that's I'm going to get off my soapbox on that one, Kent.
Okay, and I'm going to sign off on this. If you're behind your keyboard and you're talking about the Boogaloo and you're fucking making your memes and you're being Mr. Awesome Guy, and you can't put one in the X ring of a B8 for me at 5 yards when I make the little beepy sound, ever, shut the fuck up and get out on the range, please. Like, put in some work. Stop fantasizing about how it's all going to get better because I'm going to, like, you know, Joe Swanson and Family Guy it up. And maybe just, like, get some level of proficiency and skills and stop with the freaking, you know, tough guy talk about the next Civil War, because fucking nobody wants that. Anybody who's been there and anybody who's seen real carnage and real damage, anybody who's ever fucking seen what happens when human beings get severely wounded does not want to see that come to you know, any town USA. So stop talking tough and do some work in your own life before you get on the internet and make boogaloo memes about how you're going to run to the end of your driveway with your PSA special that you haven't ever zeroed. Just fucking stop it. I'm sorry. That's all.
Yeah, but so yeah, folks, that is our show. You heard it here, guys. Get out and get involved. Erik, thank you again for coming onto the show. For those of you that are new to the podcast, we obviously recommend and encourage you to like, share, and subscribe to the Sling'N Led podcast. Also, head on over to Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Follow Kent and myself on our individual channels. Kent is Green Mountain Defense. I am the Lead Slinging Ginger. As always, we appreciate the participation in our live chats. But if you don't make it to the live chat, be sure to head on over to your favorite podcast player and subscribe there. We post all these all these episodes to the audio players for the podcast, so you can enjoy on to and from your drive to work. So we always encourage that. Also, I'd like to invite you guys to email us your questions, slingandledpodcast@gmail.com. We do monitor that email inbox. We have started to get some fantastic engagement and stories and all sorts of just fantastic iterations with some of our fans, and we truly, truly appreciate it. And with that, we would really encourage you guys to email us your questions, comment on these videos with your questions. Kent and I have been toying around with the idea, and we want to do a episode dedicated to our viewers and our listeners. So any topics that you want to talk about, anything you don't feel like we covered enough that you'd like us to revisit, hell, even if we've had a guest on the show that you guys really liked and you'd want to see them come back, let us know. We'd be happy to have that. And we do monitor all that information and look forward to it. Lastly, I do want to invite everybody to head on over to the Wisconsin Trigger Company. They have been so gracious as to give us a 10% off discount code for our viewers and listeners. Sling'N Led is the discount code. It is good throughout the rest of this month on some fantastic triggers. Kent and I both use their equipment, and it is really nice. So you guys will certainly enjoy it. So once again, chat folks, appreciate y'all showing up. Tell your friends. Be sure to subscribe. And until we see each other again, take care of each other. God bless you all, and get out and shoot.
Archetype of the gun, everybody. Go follow him. Thank you.